rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Oh, apparently California is having a, because they have, 60 days or whatever it is in order to count, they are finding all sorts of votes for anybody but the GOP candidates. Now, again, as I said in 2020, okay, it is almost impossible. It is highly improbable when you have a batch of votes consistently hit like a percentage split of any one given batch of, like, say, a 60-40. 60% for one candidate, 40% for another candidate. You cannot, statistically speaking, have a 100% go to one candidate and 0% go to the other candidate. It is mathematically, in terms of statistics, mathematically impossible for that to happen. Okay? Well, very highly improbable. There's going to be at least something near a standard split. It won't be a perfect 60-40 all the time. You might see like a 70-30, or you might see, say, a 55-45, or maybe even 50-50 or something along those lines. But you will still see a division. And why these people, I just don't get it. Why everybody seems to think that, oh, yeah, if you get a huge amount of ballot drops, okay, you get a huge amount of ballot drops, you end up with a 100% going to a specific set of candidates. Yeah, really, that doesn't work when the rest of the time that split is actually not that way. So what's happening in California right now, my unofficial producer, Math Whiz here, chimed in saying, if you have 24,000 ballots, there is still a 1% chance that someone marks the wrong box. Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it. I honestly, I don't understand. Because that, again, if you're looking at mathematical, probabilities and statistics and things of that nature, yeah, it's stuff doesn't work. I'm just the mathematics does not work for anybody. All right. Well, apparently the mathematics doesn't work for the White House either, because they've announced that the Department of Justice has announced that they're going to do an investigation. And, here's the other thing. We found this out with COVID. Florida and California have roughly, good, sizable populations. And, Florida has, I think, a larger population of older people. And, Florida has, I got distracted by the chat. Anyway, Florida has a, sizable population of older folks, and California has a sizable population of younger folks, but they're pretty close. They're pretty close. Okay. But here's the thing. How is it that Florida has been able to figure out that they can count from the time the polls close to the next morning? From the time the polls close to the next morning, all of a sudden you have the full count. Everything's been counted. Everything's been verified. Everything has been taken care of. Now, this is Florida. California, it's going to take them up to July 10th, they say, in order to count everything. And the Supreme Court needs to, seriously, they must say, you know what, Election Day is Election Day, and everything has to come in by Election Day, and everything has to be counted by Election Day. You know, this idea, and you know, again, being a strict constitutionalist, I'm just going to point this out, this idea that the states have full control over how elections are run, I think is getting to a point where it's a bit asinine. Yeah. Anyway, well, oh, okay. So my unofficial producer, once again, Math Wiz, says California's population is 39.4 million. Florida has 23.4 million. And Florida gets it done in under 12 hours. So, I mean, yes, okay, so there's a little bit of a difference there. But anyway, all right. Well, that wasn't what I was going to talk about tonight, but boy, everybody talking about it and, you know, and seeing what's happening, I just decided I had to say something. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight is Ms. T. Ms. T is up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Ms. T as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I thank you, Ms. T, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, and send it off to me, and send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. I have 24 of these items. I have 24 of them, so I'd like to get 26 by the end of 2026. So if you haven't done it yet, please send it in. Do one and send it in. And if you use your phone to do so, you can use the share option. That's the S-H-A-R-E option. And you'll be able to send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All righty, folks. Well, you know, I know that there is a challenge going on with Rumble right now. I know some people seem to be able to see things. Some people can't. Oh, my words just disappeared on me. Let me refresh that, and there we go. And now I actually can see the preview in Rumble Studio, so maybe Rumble is getting better for people. I don't know. See, before I wasn't able to see the preview of my show going off in Rumble Studio, but apparently I can now, so that's cool. It's a lot better than what it was. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Let's see, where are we going? Oh yes, the headline sponsor, which is none other than, as soon as I can get my act together here, Apparently, I left some settings here from last night. It is theflagshirt.com. That's right, theflagshirt.com. I'm wearing one of their fantastic shirts right now. This one is the men's cotton polo Liberty Bell shirt. We, here in the Whiskey Warrior family, call it the Fat Paws, because Fat Paws, may he rest in peace, this was one of his favorite shirts. So this is called the Fat Paws here in the Whiskey Warrior P1 family. But where you can go to get these sharp-looking shirts is theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt.com. And if you head over there, you head over to theflagshirt.com, you will be presented with a fantastic array of clothing, whether it's men's, women's, kids, made in the USA, and, of course, the America 250th anniversary line. Go and check all of that out. Oh, by the way, you don't have to just buy clothing here. They do have gift cards available. So if you have a patriotic person that you don't know necessarily what they would like, get them a gift card for their birthday, anniversary, or just to say, hey, American, we love it that you're patriotic. Yeah, go and do that. Head on over to theflagshirt.com, and if you order $75 or more of their product, they will give you free shipping. That's right. They will give you free shipping. So head on over to theflagshirt.com. Check out all of their stuff as much as you can, and get yourself patriotized. All righty. Well, Graham Platner. Oh, gosh. Just when you think it's done, just when you think you've hit bottom in the Graham Platner world of scandals, nope, it keeps going. It kind of reminds me of this. Now, I've never seen this movie, I'm just going to tell you, but boy, this clip is so apropos. This piece is so apropos for the Graham Platner campaign right now. Whew. Anyway, take a listen to this piece or this clip right here.
Standard.
Hey, the trunk looks kind of small there, Anton.
This is live. I'm on live TV. Trunk's fine. As you can see, friend, it's not small. It's a big trunk. I'll show you right here.
Whoa, you got a dead hooker in the trunk.
What? No, it can't be.
Yes, it was. It was a dead hooker.
It wasn't a dead hooker!
Hell, I know a dead hooker when I see one.
What's happening? Hey, folks, yeah, come on
Hey,
down.
hey, here's another dead hooker in this trunk.
What?
Oh, my goodness.
What are you doing?
I've never seen so many dead hookers in all my life.
I have no idea what I have no idea what movie that was, but it was a Norm Macdonald was in it. He was the one calling out about the dead hookers. But that's the Graham Platner campaign right now. Every time Graham turns around, there's something new. So let's see. Let's talk about this first. What did Graham Platner have? Oh, yes, he had a Nazi tattoo. All right. Then what else did he have? Well, let's see. He was sexting multiple women while he was married. Okay. Well, all right. That may not be that bad, I guess. I don't know. To me, it would be, but, to Democrats, I guess it's not that bad. Then you have, let's see. What was that? There's so many. I'm starting to lose it here. Yes, he was on Kick, a online dating platform. Yeah. And that's where he was getting the women he was sexting. Let's see. What else was there? Oh, yeah. Well, let's just continue on down the line. Well, I guess the New York Times apparently decided to write in the biz, you would normally call this a puff piece, but oh my gosh, it wasn't anything close to it. They apparently have been, trying to talk to people and get some background on Platner for quite some time here. Now, you would think that the DNC would have, vetted this guy a little bit better. I guess they were just, I don't know, off on La La Land, or maybe they were so screwed up because of the, Joe Biden drop out of the race and the Kamala Harris crash and burn. I don't know. Anyway, you would think they would have vetted this guy a lot better. Well, the New York Times decided to finally do this piece. They finally got enough things together, enough stuff together, and they said, okay, fine, we're going to put it out there. And let's just say that it doesn't necessarily put Graham Platner in a good light, which is weird because the New York Times is a propaganda piece. Now, that being said, the New York Times piece that did come out, where they did talk to some of Graham Platner's past relationships. And apparently, of the 6 women, I've been told, 6 women that they talked to, 3 of them said he was nice and loving and okay. 2 said that, well, he was a little bit weird and creepy. And the last one was like, no, he actually physically abused me. It's that last one that we're going to focus on a little bit here, because her name is Lindsay Fifield. And Lindsay at first had reservations with talking to the New York Times. And in fact, Lindsay has personally identified herself as being the one who essentially said, hey, you guys do realize that this guy has a Nazi tattoo, right? She's the first one that apparently, or she claims that she was the first one, that identified the fact that, yeah, it was a Nazi tattoo. Now, here's the problem with that Nazi tattoo. I mean, he has since covered it up in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how, but because frankly, I don't necessarily go around looking at, tattoos of morons. But anyway, here's where the problem breaks down. Now, you recall Graham Platner talking about the tattoo and saying, well, yeah, I honestly, I didn't know. I didn't know until October. Well, Graham Platner was on MS Now, and apparently now that this piece has come out and there's been some further investigation, further information coming out in the fact that he apparently told this Lindsay Fifield years before what the tattoo actually meant. Yeah. And he actually even referred to it in a Nazi terminology. But, well, let's head over to here and see how bad Graham is. Even on a friendly place like MS Now, how bad Graham is flailing.
Is again, totally false.
I do want to follow up one place on this, and I don't want to get too forensic, but, the Times basically reported that they saw texts of hers, including a text in August, I believe August 3rd of last year. This would be before October of last year, in which she basically said that you had a, quote, Nazi tattoo, and she joked about how she's going to go volunteer for Collins. Now, again, this is a text that got sent, so, we can place the time, right? This is in August. How does she know it's a Nazi tattoo in August of last year, and you don't know it's a Nazi tattoo in August of last year?
Well, she certainly didn't send that text to me. So whoever she sent it to and was talking to, I can't say why, but I will say that I certainly didn't know. And the text messages she's sending to friends who may have recognized it, they didn't tell me that. So
can we talk?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a problem with that, because apparently, according to this individual, according to this individual, and I'm kind of bouncing around here to in different stories here to kind of tie this together. But let's see, where is it? Apparently, she stated that she knew it was a Nazi tattoo because of the fact that he no. I'm still trying to find it, sorry. Yeah. Oh, no, that's not it. Where is it? Not that one. Anyway, that she knew about it and that he referred to it in particular as, let's see. Did he refer to my Totenkopf? I think that's the terminology that was used. I'm trying to find it here. I gotta get right. Yeah. Yeah, my Totenkopf is what he called it. So, yeah, when they were together, which was way earlier than this. So, yeah. So, it's kind of interesting how this is the case and what is going on here. Notice that he didn't really necessarily disagree with the fact that, well, I've never seen the text. Oh, okay. But he never really applied, or sorry, never really refuted the idea that, yeah, he did refer to it as is my Totenkopf, among other things. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Here it was, here it is. So in the piece, his former girlfriend, Lindsay Feifeld, claims that he knew about the meaning of it when they were dating years ago, when they dated more than 10 years ago, to be exact. According to the New York Times piece, when the pair dated years ago, Platner would call the tattoo my Totenkopf. Feifeld alleged in the report. She told the outlet, she's like, well, I would have never known what that was. He would joke about it being a Nazi tattoo. Now, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I would at least recognize that it was German, but I wouldn't necessarily say that, per se, if I had a tattoo. So, he knew. Come on, he knew. I don't know of anybody that just goes and puts a tattoo on their body and doesn't recognize what it actually is. Now, reportedly, he got the tattoo overseas while he was in the Marines with a bunch of other Marine people. So who the hell knows for sure from that particular setup whether or not he knew about it or not. He's claiming he didn't know about it until somebody actually said, well, yeah. Anyway, yeah, yeah, exactly, G. How many people, G says, how many people get illustrated without knowing what they are actually getting? Yeah, I agree. Anyway, so apparently there's some more dirt on him. According to at least a few of his ex-girlfriends, that he had heavy drinking, and Lindsay claims that he actually grabbed her by the shoulders forcefully enough to actually leave grip marks. Now, I can tell you this, being a man that actually respects women, I've been in a few relationships, One was actually could be considered the starting of an abusive relationship, because I actually had a heavy lead crystal ashtray thrown at me, as well as a pan thrown at me. And, well, let's just say, thank God that didn't last long. But the point is that under no circumstances would I have ever grabbed a woman forcefully enough that I would leave bruises, essentially, because those are what you would leave if you grab somebody forcefully hard enough, that I would never leave prints on a person. I just can't imagine being so angry and so out of control that I would end up leaving some, physical prints on another person's body that was a woman that I was reportedly in love with, or at least in lust with, cared about in some way. So, yeah. Yeah. Now, there were a few other things, with regards to this. And, yeah, the woman, like I was saying about the Totenkopf, here's even CNN. CNN is stepping in because the same woman, made a reference to it when talking to CNN. So this is not just the New York Times where this is happening.
Breaking news, the New York Times publishing new allegations against Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Platner. I'm speaking with 6 women who have dated Platner. Now, 3 of them described him as a caring partner, but 3 of them described volatile and toxic relationships, including allegations of infidelity, demeaning behavior toward women, heavy drinking, and in one account, physical intimidation. Lindsay Fifield, who dated Platner for about 2 or 3 years, 2013 to 2015, alleges to the Times that Platner grabbed her by the shoulders regularly, sometimes hard enough to leave marks. She also described an argument with Platner where he twisted her arm behind her back, shoving her into a bedroom and holding the door closed so she couldn't get out. Again, that's her account. He strongly disputes the claims. His campaign saying the most serious allegations are false and politically motivated. So I want to go to our K-File, Andrew Kaczynski, who's done extensive reporting on Platner and, of course, spoken to him. And K-File, alongside these new allegations, I know that you also have new reporting about this tattoo we've heard a lot about, right? Specifically, this Nazi tattoo. It's widely recognized as a Nazi symbol that Platner had on his chest. What are you learning?
Well, Aaron, what we're learning tonight is that a woman who spoke to CNN anonymously last year is now going public to the New York Times and CNN and directly challenging Graham Platner's explanation about the tattoo. She says Platner referred to the image as my Totenkopf. That's a reference to the skull and crossbone emblem used by Nazi SS units years before the controversy became public. She was the same source who previously provided CNN with text messages showing that before Platner said he learned of the symbol's Nazi associations, she was already describing the tattoo to friends as a Nazi symbol and saying that she learned that from Platner. Now, her account also lines up with reporting we uncovered last year from Platner's deleted Reddit post. In those posts, they discussed the Totenkopf and other Nazi-linked symbols, and he argued that some members of the military had adopted them as part of military culture rather than expressions of Nazi ideology. Now, this raises new questions about Platner's long-standing claim that he only recently learned about the symbol's Nazi associations last year. And most importantly here, Aaron, is this campaign has really offered no explanation as to how his ex-girlfriend could have known about the tattoo before he did. These text messages were in August of last year when he announced his campaign, and Platner said that he learned about it in October. The campaign is standing by their explanation to us, Aaron. They're saying that he did not know about the tattoo until October.
Yeah. Well, he apparently knew about it much earlier than that. Yeah, and now granted, if it was just the tattoo, I would be, okay, fine. All right, maybe he made a mistake. I mean, people do. They make mistakes all the time. some people go and actually get tattoos, and when they get a tattoo, they write somebody else's name on their body, and then they end up, leaving them or divorcing them. By the way, that's a rule for tattooing. Never, ever, ever get somebody else's name on your body, like your wife's name, because she can divorce you. So, your children's names, that's okay. Your mom's names, that's okay, because you're blood related. You can't do anything, But legally binding names, yeah, I was told when I got my tattoo that was something. And don't ever put your wife's name on your body. After 30 years of being together, 30 plus years of being together, I think if I'd have gotten her name on my body a long time ago, it may have stuck around. I mean, she's tolerated me this long. I suppose that could be could have been a thing, but anyway. Kids, parents, grandkids, I mean, your favorite dog, I guess, it has a closer relationship because people are just damn fickle. But that being said, I personally, I would never put, no offense to my wife, and we've had conversations about this, so this is nothing unusual, but no offense to my wife, but if she decided to leave tomorrow, I would definitely not want that tattoo on my body. So I just don't put any names. I just say don't put any names and call it good. But anyway, and no, Fernando, I'm not calling you out. Anyway, so there you go. So that's what it is. All right. And this woman, Lindsay Feifeld, she went on to X and she started talking about this. Now, if you want to head on over to X, you can go and take a look. She is at Lindsay Feifeld, and Lindsay is spelled Lyndsey, and then Fifeld. And she's basically put out a whole freaking list or thread, I guess is what they call them, a full thread about her whole ordeal and how she did not want to talk to the Times, but the Times kept pushing, and especially right after he announced his candidacy, they went and started looking for him. Now, I'm just going to put a little suggestion out there. If you're thinking of running, if you are thinking of running with essentially running in especially a potentially nationalized campaign, don't have any skeletons in your closet that are going to come back and bite you like this. Now, the thing about it is about the New York Times piece, you remember how I said it was a puff piece? Sort of. Well, apparently the New York Times deliberately withheld the abuse part of it. Deliberately withheld his abuse of, alcohol and all of that stuff. Yeah. And by the way, the New York Times, of course, said, according to Lindsay, that the New York Times said that they would protect her. That, men couldn't keep getting away with her, with abuse. They apparently had collected her diary pages, her screenshots, her contacts, walked away with everything that she had, and then they published the story. However, according to Feifeld, they omitted the most serious allegation, which was, of course, the abuse. So, yeah. So apparently, there is a lot of documentation to back this up. That's all I'm saying. That she has, or at least she did, have all kinds of stuff. And by the way, she said in that lengthy post on X, she said, I explained very clearly to the Times that, like many women abused by their partners, I had not told anyone about his violence at the time. I had covered for it and defended it. I accepted his earnest apologies. They said that's fine because the diary entries in my on-the-record story was enough. Then she says that she bucked all advice from my friends and resisted my conservative bias. So she admits that she is a conservative. So, there you go. Anyway, she said she decided to fully trust the Times journalists. No, those are Times propagandists. Sorry. Anyway, she declined to speak to any other outlets and kept her promise through weeks of delays. But then the story ran, and it was nothing like what she expected. She goes, after the story went up, I began to ask them, wait, where are the stories from the other women? Because the Times are like, hey, we had other women here. You know, where's the other women? Where are the accusations, their own accusations of sexual assault? Why am I the focus? She's like, why are there 11 paragraphs dedicated to detailing my work history and more that has been published about Graham by far? So, yeah, the New York Times, of course, spiked the accusations of sexual assault from the other women. Which, by the way, the other women were technically Democrats in their article, and instead focused on her. So, Lindsay also pointed out, why does it say that nobody could corroborate when I offered them sources that could corroborate? Those friends confirmed to the Times that Fifield had told them about Platner's abuse years before he ever announced to run for office. Well, apparently the Times, according to her, left that out as well. She has drawn the conclusion, and she says this. She goes, it dawned on me that this really was a setup all along. The journalists I trusted, she says, who convinced me to share a story I never wanted to tell, methodically delayed and twisted this into a grift for the Platner campaign, violating the trust of his victims, shattering the trust I placed in them with the most vulnerable story of my life. Now, the New York Times has since come out and put out a response. They responded to a request by the Daily Wire about it. Times spokeswoman Nicole Taylor said, quote, we published accounts provided by several women who were in romantic relationships with Graham Platner. Our story accurately presents each of these accounts as told to our reporters and according to our standards. We stand by our reporting of the accounts of Ms. Fifield and the other women who provided a revealing look at the behavior of a major candidate for the United States Senate. Now, Fifield, of course, like I said, has been, a little more, talking a little bit more about the physical abuse, and Platner has, as usual, denied any of the allegations. And what's interesting, of course, is that, I haven't seen yet, although I expect it to come. I haven't seen yet them attacking Fifield and saying that it is a partisan kind of thing. Partisan kind of thing. I expect that to come out. Although, I mean, Platner and his campaign have already said that, well, this is a hit piece, you know, this isn't true or whatever. But yeah. Yeah. So, this is going to be interesting. She also said, Lindsay also said that the Times failed to use numerous screenshots that she had provided to reporters to verify her account of the relationship. She goes, where were the screenshots they said they would use or mentioned that I'd supported local Democrats, that most of my family and husband are liberal? The editors said it was too much, they explained. The Times also failed to include any mention that I did confide in multiple friends throughout the years that Graham had been abusive, long before he was running for office, those friends confirmed that they told the Times exactly that. Yeah. Anyway. Well, let's just say that Platner is in doing damage control or attempting to do damage control. And, yeah. So his quote there are some allegations in this piece that I just want to be kind of unequivocal about are simply not true. Anything alleging physicality, anything alleging that I knew what my tattoo was, these are the statements of someone who's politically motivated. There is the point. Now, they haven't come out and like literally said that this woman is doing this to try and tank his campaign, but that's the suggestion. Now, for everybody that doesn't know, Janet Mills is still on the ballot. Technically, she has only suspended her campaign. That doesn't mean that she is suspending being on the ballot. She basically is saying, no. She's now talking about this. This is kind of interesting. You'll know that she stopped campaigning because of the fact that Graham Platner was beating her in the polls, resoundingly beating her in the polls. And anyway, the interesting thing about it is now Janet Mills is saying, well, wait a minute. I may not be campaigning, but that doesn't mean that I'm off the ballot. That doesn't mean that I still don't want the opportunity. So that's kind of an interesting little thing there with regards to this. Yeah. So, There also, by the way, another report that's come out by the Daily Wire. Now, if you guys actually think that Graham Platner is bad, I mean, I'd be like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Why are you running for office? Holy crap. Talk about skeletons in the closet. Now, I admit, there's nobody that's perfect, okay? Not even, I will be the first to tell you, I'm not perfect. I have a couple things that I know if I were to run would come out. And frankly, if they did come out, I don't think they would be all that bad, realistically, considering the situation, as long as the truth was brought to light. However, in this particular case, you have to wonder where the DNC was thinking. Why did they pass up Janet Mills as an example? She is proven, vetted. She was already in office. Anything that could have come out that was bad about her probably would have already been taken care of, okay, a long time ago. It would have been aired out. It would have been dismissed. It would have been, denied, whatever, a long time ago. But no, they decided to go in a different direction. And what's even worse, according to this piece in the Daily Wire, Graham Platner wasn't even the first option. He was their second option. Okay, so hold up. So let me think about this for a second. You have a guy that has a Nazi tattoo who, by all accounts, right now, knew that it was a Nazi tattoo and still put it on his body anyway, for whatever reason. And rather than standing up and saying, you know what, I'm not with the Nazis. He cheated, per se, on his wife, sexting other women. He was on Kick, which is a known sexual predator platform. or at least that's its reputation. Sort of like OnlyFans, which wasn't originally designed for this, but OnlyFans, the minute you say, yes, I have an OnlyFans account, the first thing anybody thinks of is soft or hardcore porn by women. You know, especially when a woman says, I have an OnlyFans account. Even though it's supposed to basically be, hey, you go, you sign up, you get paid directly from these folks, from people who follow you on OnlyFans, and it's supposed to be a secured site where you can go and post things and that kind of stuff. And then now you have this piece come out, and you can tell there's some question as to whether or not the man was actually, potentially physically abusive in at least one, maybe more relationships. That there is a hint that there could have been sexual violence. Now, here's the thing. The left should be following in the whole Me Too movement right now. They should be like, hey, because you know how that happens. I mean, Trump gets accused by a woman who can't remember what dress she was wearing, can't remember the date, can't remember, specifics about this supposed event, that the state of New York had to change the law in order to even bring the case forward. And she gets like billions of dollars. I don't know what the amount was, millions of dollars or whatever, for this alleged thing that may have happened, may not have happened. Who knows? Because there's nothing there. Okay. But anyway, there's questions all over the board when it comes to that. But Graham Platner, it gets a pass by these guys. But here's the thing. According to the Daily Wire, Graham Platner was the second choice. So I got to ask, I just got to ask, what the hell would be worse than all of the stuff that Graham Platner has stacked up? According to two Bernie Sanders aligned operatives. Now, these two have been active, essentially active political activists, and they went on a hunt to try and find somebody who could challenge Susan Collins up in Maine. And reportedly, they turned to Graham Platner after they had found that their first choice had a big skeleton in his closet. So now we know, based off of that, if they're identifying the potential first option as a man, that leaves Janet Mills out. So it wasn't Janet Mills that has some big skeleton in the closet. So apparently, according to Politico, two Boston-based Democrat operatives who met on Bernie Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign began searching for someone who could take down Susan Collins. Now, national Democrats view that seat as their best path to flip control of the Senate. Daniel Moroff and Leanne Fan, who, by the way, they're both engaged to each other, have built an impressive political resume for finding unconventional candidates. Now, during the 2024 cycle, the pair recruited independent candidate Dan Osborne to challenge the vulnerable Republican Senator Deb Fischer in Nebraska. Osborne, who is expected to caucus with the Democrats if elected, forced Republicans to spend heavily to defend that seat. His pro-union working-class campaign resonated with voters, allowing him to outperform Harris by nearly 8 points. So, fresh off of that effort, the couple went to Maine to go and find a left-wing populist after their initial choice. Oh, union boss Chris Williams. Chris Williams was their first choice. and he was sidelined by an undisclosed scandal. Moraff told Politico it was a go, but then there was a skeleton closet that wasn't true that we would have had to explain. Okay, wait a minute. Let me see if I understand this correctly. These are two political operatives. They go up into Maine. They say, hey, we're going to find a candidate, undiscovered candidate. And we're going to go up there. We're going to find this undiscovered candidate. We're going to try and get this undiscovered candidate to run against Susan Collins because we want to flip this seat. They pick a guy who, obviously is known at least to the unions because he's the union boss. So he's known to the unions, and they go, hey, you know what? We're going to get you. Except there's a skeleton in your closet. That skeleton, which isn't true, by the way, according to their own claim, it isn't true, but we'd have to explain it to everybody. Okay, what could possibly be a skeleton that's not true that is worse than the factual Graham Platner scandals? See, now I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What the hell? What could be there? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I can't even imagine. I mean, unless it was like a murder, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's, credibly accused of rape. I mean, seriously, what could be worse than a guy that has a Nazi tattoo that he says he didn't know anything about it, even though he did, apparently by other people's claims, that he was, I don't know what it could be. But just think about this. The Democrats are finding some really bad candidates. Really bad candidates. Wow. Their first choice had a fake scandal that they would have had to explain. And you have Graham Platner. Yeah. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I have no idea what's going on. These people are incredibly stupid. That's all I got to say. All right. I'm going to do this real quick because if I don't, I'm not going to get to it. And I kind of got to get to it. So let's talk really quick here about the Rumble Wallet. Now, understand you should use this as a diversification tool, honestly, not putting everything in one basket. But we hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part that most people miss. Crypto was created so that you can actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, limiting access, you're in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you felt that problem. Now fast forward to today, where everybody's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. That's exactly why Rumble Wallet was created. It takes all that complexity and makes it simple. Choose what you want, whether it's Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. Now, that's the one you should look at. I'm just telling you. That one right there is the one you should look at. There's no complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or your bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So, do this now. Oh, damn it, I did it again. Do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download the Rumble wallet, or head on over to wallet.rumble.com. That's wallet.rumble.com, and get more details about this exciting new diversification opportunity. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some crypto, as well as owning some digital gold and things of that nature. So head on over to wallet.rumble.com. That's WALLET.rumble.com, and find out all of the details, or download the Rumble wallet from either Google Play or the App Store and start gathering your crypto, your dollar-backed stablecoins, or your digital gold, which is backed by real gold today. Go to wallet.rumble.com and check out this opportunity. All right. Well, folks, I want to point something out. There's still a lot of people who are out there who still seem to believe and still seem to use the whole idea that Trump is a convicted felon. And while I have, disputed this quite often, it's actually refreshing to see a leftist, a literal leftist, okay? Like carte blanche, staunch, oh my God, can't get any more left, actually question the same thing. So I don't know if anybody, there's this piece in Town Hall. It's an opinion piece. It's by Larry Elder. And Larry Elder calls out this whole thing with regards to the charges against Trump being brought by Alvin Bragg, that, he turned him into 34 felony counts, so on and so forth. Well, Ellie Honig, the guy that's got a, afro up to here. Anyway, Ellie Honig, who is senior, no, maybe that's not the guy. I can't remember. Anyway, CNN senior legal analyst outlined his objections to the claim that Trump is a convicted felon in New York Magazine. And here is what he wrote. He goes, the judge donated money. It was a tiny amount, $35, but in plain violation of a rule that prohibited New York judges from making political donations of any kind to a pro-Biden, anti-Trump political operation, including the funds the judge earmarked for resisting the Republican Party and Donald Trump's radical right-wing legacy. So there, number one, you have the judge against you. Now, he basically points out, he's like, would folks have just been fine with the judge saying on the case that if he had donated a couple of bucks to the re-elect Donald Trump MAGA Forever campaign? Of course not. Then he goes and he says, well, Alvin Bragg ran for office in an overwhelmingly Democrat county by touting his Trump hunting prowess. He falsely and bizarrely boasted on the campaign trail that it is a fact that I have sued Trump over 100 times. He goes, most importantly, the DA's charges against Trump push the outer boundaries of law and due process. He says that's not on the jury, that's on the prosecutors who chose to bring the case. He says the charges against Trump are obscure, nearly entirely unprecedented. In fact, there's not a single state prosecutor anywhere that has ever charged federal election laws as a direct or predicate state crime against anyone for anything. None, ever. Even putting aside the specifics of election law, the Manhattan DA itself almost never brings any case in which falsification of business records is the only charge. Now, he says, standing alone, falsification charges would have been mere misdemeanors under New York law, which posed two problems for the DA. First, nobody cares about a misdemeanor. And second, it would be laughable to bring the first ever charge against a former president for a trifling offense that falls within the same technical criminal classifications as shoplifting a Snapple or a bag of Cheetos from a bodega. Second, the statute of limitations on a misdemeanor, which is 2 years, likely has long expired on Trump's conduct, which dates back to 2016 and 2017. So, to inflate the charges up to the lowest level felony and to electroshock them back to life within the longer felony statute of limitations, the DA alleged that the falsifications of business records was committed with intent to do some other crime. And by the way, the DA refused to specify what those unlawful means actually were. Yeah. And by the way, the judge declined to force the prosecution to say what they are until right before closing arguments. So much for the constitutional obligation of providing notice to the defendant for the charges against him in advance of trial. Now that's a lot more. There's more in this piece, but basically it's like, well, okay, they contorted the law in an unprecedented manner in their quest to snare their prey. Now, CNN's senior legal analyst describes the prosecution as a Frankenstein case, says that prosecutors contorted the law in an unprecedented manner, and warns about deviations from ordinary process and principle. It appears that, calling him a convicted felon, which isn't the case, isn't quite the conversation-ending argument that Trump critics actually think it is. Now, he does say, or the piece here does say, Larry Elder says, this does not mean that my cousin Vinny could win this on appeal, but based on Honig's objections, Trump's odds look pretty darn good on the appeal. Now, I don't know where the appeal is with this, but like I've been telling people, hey, this thing is on appeal and it is likely going to get thrown out because of all the improper actions taken not only by the DA, but also by the New York justice system. All righty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumb sideways or at an angle if you're 3 Chevy. Across all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is Saturday, 1 hour later, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.